Hey, Derek,
Hey, John.
where does Captain Hook go to replace the hook on his arm?
I don't know. Where'd he
No.
go?
The secondhand store.
Oh my God.
Let's move away from lies and fears. Perhaps it's time to leave. Coming out from the edge of deception, sailing into a new destination. What a joy when you're walking and living out free. Laying down all the past situations. Every step is a new motivation. What a joy when you're walking and living out.
That's good. That was good. You really,
Eh.
you really hooked me with that one. You really knew how to draw me in.
Thank you for tuning in
Very
this week's
pointed
episode
humor.
of ShatterCast. My name's John. I'm your host today. I'm here with my lovely wife, Hannah. And we've also got, of course, Derek, Joel, Brian, and Gabe. Very excited to have all of you here today. Hannah,
Yes.
why does Peter Pan always fly? Because he never lands. All right, so we're talking about not just Disney, despite the Disney puns. We are talking about movies, streaming, the impacts in the industry over the next really 12 to 24 months. And Derek, I know you have a lot to say about this. So I want to give it over to you to start us off.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been an interesting time for movies and theaters. We're concerned about the theater industry with everyone having to stay at home. There's a lot of concerns there. A lot of movie studios have been responding to people staying at home in different ways. So just real fast, we wanted to go through some of the ways that theaters are responding. So when everything hit with the virus, there were some movies that just been released to movie screens, like Bloodshot and things like that. Some of those movies have now been released digitally, and so for some of them you can rent them. Now, some of the rent cost is like $20 to rent a movie. There's some concern about that. Usually, you can buy a digital movie for that amount. I think they're trying to take into account what you would pay if you go to the theaters.
Yeah.
So that's a little tough. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
I mean, I think that there's some like cognitive dissonance with that. People aren't expecting to rent a movie for that much. But at the same time, personally, I would understand that I'm going to spend that much when I go to a movie theater. Like you said, if you view a movie theater experience as renting the movie for a single viewing, then it's reasonable because even though we're not getting the movie theater experience, they still spent $150 million producing that movie and they can't rent it out for $3 a pop. So it's understandable. It sucks, but it's understandable.
Well, the truth of the matter is, like, if you're going to a movie theater, you're gonna spend $20 on dang popcorn, Coke. Okay, you gotta get those large Cokes. There's a friend of mine. He'll look. Okay, this is a true story. He'll look into the garbage cans. I'm not even joking. He'll find a popcorn bucket that's
Oh no.
only halfway full. He'll dump it out. He'll go to the bathroom. He'll wipe it out. Then he'll go to the refill, and he'll get a free refill.
We do not recommend this, guys.
Wipes it out, but
No.
It's not allowed. It's called stealing.
yeah.
That was a bad idea 5 years ago. It's the worst idea in the post-corona.
With the virus.
Yeah, that's how
Don't do it.
He's one of those
Don't
guys
do
that will
that.
probably theater hop. It's like you get like the one ticket and then you get the whole day adventure. It's like
gosh.
this is
Hey,
like
Derek.
the golden ticket.
Hey, Derek, you had more to say. Why don't you start
I
talking?
do.
I don't think we should.
Just saying, I'm just saying, drive-in movie theaters need to become back.
There you go.
Ooh,
There-
okay,
Theaters,
Brian. All right,
automatic.
Brian, I see you.
6 feet distancing, easy.
Yes.
Stay in
Easy.
your car. Perfect.
I have a
Absolutely.
friend who's doing his church like that.
That's
They're
right.
actually just meeting in the parking
Yeah.
lot, and he's broadcasting on a local radio station, and they're all tuning in. They're just doing drive-in church.
Yeah.
Drive-in church.
To Brian's point, real fast, there's actually a movie chain. I think it's Epic. Some of their theaters, they are now offering drive-in or drive-up movies. So I guess they're
awesome.
projecting it on the outside of the building. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Some of my favorite memories as a child. There was a drive-in theater about 30 minutes from where we lived. Every summer we would go, probably every weekend, and that was just like our summer ritual. So I grew up with drive-in theaters. I love it. I've always been a fan and a proponent of supporting them if they're nearby. So, if drive-in theaters make a comeback, or, if we can just, patronize them so that they can, get their money. Patronize in a good way.
Cool. Well,
yes.
Hopefully now you can have a sit-in theater at home. So the other thing studios are doing is, I tried, guys. They're releasing they're releasing some high AAA movies, whatever you want to call it, straight to streaming now. So we had Onward, that was released straight to streaming. There's an Artemis Fowl movie coming out that they've been working on. That's going to be straight to streaming as well. So some of these high-profile movies that were going to be released in theaters are now coming out on streaming services. What do you guys think about that?
Well, is it fowl or fowl? Is this like a chicken or is it like a smell?
It's like a chicken.
It's spelled like a chicken.
Okay, I just had to make sure. One of the things is like, will people stick with the video on demand stuff even after this thing ends? Will they just get used to it? I don't know. To be honest,
it's a really great thing for TV shows. Like some TV shows don't even broadcast to TV anymore; they just go straight to Netflix or other streaming services. And these streaming services, streaming services are creating their own films and TV shows.
Well, like Stranger Things, it's a Netflix show, right? And so, not every streaming service original is as good as Netflix, not Netflix, Stranger Things or Mandalorian, but it could bode well. It could be a shift in the industry that we're seeing.
But you miss out on the date night kind of experience. It's true though, because when you go to the movie theater, you're there to watch a movie. The movie may not really matter because you're more doing a social experience.
Yeah, that's been John and I's go-to date. I mean, our first date was dinner and a movie. The date he proposed to me on was dinner and a movie. It's always been a movie. And now that we've got this situation in the world, I mean, may not go to movies as often. I don't know. I'm eager to go back to the movies.
Yeah, well, and you make a great point there that for us especially, going to the movies was not just an entertainment experience, it was a social experience, right? I personally have never really enjoyed going to movies by myself because I enjoy them through the people that I'm with. Seeing someone else have a good time, being able to debrief with them afterwards and talk through things. That's where I get a lot of the enjoyment and the excitement out of going to a movie. So definitely is a social thing for me.
Yep. So it's like, and then you get movies like, as you mentioned, Derek, like the Vin Diesel Bloodshot movie. It's like, it's not a huge heavy hitter. So for just only that being streaming, I don't think it's going to do as well as if it were just in the theaters. Because at least if it's in the theaters, you're getting like that movie experience with like the surround sound, the seats are all shaking. When you're just gonna watch it by yourself for $20, you're gonna be like, well, I feel like I'm living my life a quarter mile at a time with this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Well, I will say though,
it was all for that joke, by the way.
That was a long setup.
It was a long setup, but we got there. You set them up and you gotta knock them down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's an inch or a mile, right, Joel?
All right, so studios are doing one last big thing that we think about. They are just shifting their release schedule. So there's a bunch of movies that were set to come out like this summer are now getting all pushed back. So strap yourselves in for this. Listen to this. So Marvel pushed all of their movies back, beginning with Black Widow to the later time. So that's getting pushed back. Then DC released push back all their movies like Shazam 2 and Wonder Woman 2 and a couple things like that. Then Sony, which still owns Spider-Man rights, decided to push back Spider-Man, and I guess they had a communication with Marvel, so now Marvel's getting out of the way of that, so now their movies are getting pushed back again to accommodate Spider-Man. One of the things that came out
have to be released in a certain order because they're all in the same universe. So
exactly. So everything's being pushed back. One thing that came out of that that I think you're excited for, John, is that the movie Uncharted is now pushed up because of all this stuff. So what do you guys think about all this kind of crazy release schedule shifting that's going on?
Well, I think what everyone's going to want to talk about is the fact that movies got pushed back and what that means. But I'm just going to take a second and talk about what you mentioned, and that is Uncharted getting pushed forward because recently we were talking about video games and consoles, and I mentioned one of the reasons I love PlayStation is because I love the Uncharted series. It's a fantastic game series. When they announced the Uncharted movie, I was excited and also terrified because video game movies are almost always bad. They're not always bad, but almost always bad. And then I saw that Tom Holland was being cast as Nathan Drake, and I was like, okay, this one's going to be good. And I think the fact that it's being taken care of by the same company that's doing the game is doing the movie. Now, Sony is a big company, and it's not the exact same team, obviously. Their video game team doesn't do movie production. But I'm really, really, really excited. And the fact that it's moving forward early, July 2021, guys, let's do it.
July 2021, we're moving into uncharted territory with these movies. That's all I'm saying, you know.
Okay, I think I can kick Joel from the call.
Okay, I don't think so, man. I don't think, I don't think you're allowed to do that. I don't think you're allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. No, that's not what I do.
Gabe has the power.
The weirdest thing for me with the fact that things are getting pushed back is that culturally summer is a huge time for movies because people aren't like at work or in school or that kind of thing. They're looking for things to do with their family, and you know, everyone talks about movies coming out in the summer. That's usually the biggest time for movie releases, and so I wonder if this is even going to change how we culturally look at summertime being the big time for movies.
We still have to wait until the year. This year is completely different for everybody, so it's like new experiences that everybody's understanding. We'll see how it differentiates from next year also. Maybe next year it'll be back to doing exactly the same thing the same way that it was before. Like, for example, moving the movies back, it's like, well, yes, it happened. It's bad for the people that were really, really excited about it. That's really the smart move to do. It's not like if they were to release it today, it's not that anybody would go to the movie. So it's like that little situation there. And about streaming on demand, video on demand, it was already happening before all this started. Like, there were already shows that were going straight to the streaming platforms. So it just seemed to be the new thing, and it was, well, good timing for even all this that was happening. Like, people, I would have like artistic friends that would already say, like, people that would be doing videography and filmography, and they would already say, like, I don't want to bring it out in theaters because it's not going to help me. I prefer to sell it to Netflix, whatever movie they were doing, whatever short they were doing, because it was just going to be better for them.
Yeah, obviously some studios are pushing back their dates. Some are deciding to release it on streaming services. And I think a big thing you have to consider when you're deciding which one to do with your movie is your audience. Like Marvel, they know that a lot of their money comes in on their opening night. The fact that people love going and getting that shared experience, all the reactions in the theater. But something like Onward, which is a kids movie, that's going to be played on repeat in the house over and over again because of how much kids like to repeat watch movies.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but I think the difference between like a TV show streaming and like a movie theater release streaming is price. One of them you're already paying for with your Netflix streaming service. The other one you're paying $20 per rental, and that's a chunk of change, you know. So I think that I don't know if that's the wisest move. Now, if it launches out and you can buy it for $20, it's different than a rent for $20 from your home.
We're gonna see, right? I mean, some of those first releases that are happening, like Onward and other movies. I think Black Widow is going to be coming to Disney Plus, isn't it, when it releases?
No, it's still coming in the theater.
Okay. Yeah. So early on, I heard that might happen. It has probably changed a dozen times, but we're going to see how it plays out. Sorry, we're going to see how it plays out with some of these first movies, and we'll know, are people willing to mentally fork over $20 for a movie they're going to watch at home? Maybe not. Maybe so. We don't know. We'll see.
I think studios are doing their best with what's going on. Like, I feel bad for movies like Bloodshot, like we had mentioned, that came out in the theater and isn't super well known, and then all the virus stuff broke out. Like, that's gonna mess with their opening weekend and all that stuff. And so I think that's why then they decided to release the video. But the other big thing is, by pushing movies like Onward to streaming services, if someone didn't have a Disney Plus, they might be more likely now to pick up the streaming service. So I think movie theaters are trying to figure out what they're going to do. As far as Marvel and DC and all that stuff, and Brian, you can speak to us as our resident DC fan. I think it's wise for the movies to push back the release date because, as Hannah was saying, they want that opening weekend box office if they can get it, and they know they're going to get it when people can go back to the theaters. But I don't know, Brian, what do you think about DC at least pushing their movies back?
I mean, like you said, I definitely agree. I remember watching Endgame, having all that audience reactions, all those big moments, having the feel of everyone else having the same reaction as you. That's definitely it's a different experience than just watching it by yourself, or even with just some of your friends. Having the whole room, having that experience, I feel like that's definitely worth the wait.
It's a different experience.
Yeah. Well, good things come to those who wait. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that there's a rush for these films, to be quite frank with you. I mean, we're, especially when it comes to like the Marvel movies, we're in phase 4 now. We're just starting it. So it's not like an Endgame release has been pushed back.
Right.
These are new movies that will we watch them? Sure. But it's not like I'm like rolling over saying, no.
He was before we recorded, but we won't bring that up.
Okay, listen, that was one
He was
time.
on his bed.
That was one time this week, all right? It only happens a few times
Maybe
per
for
week,
Wonder
all right?
Woman 1984, but
Joel, you actually make a great point. If all of this had happened last year this time, it would have been right before Endgame came out, and I think that we would all be just distraught right now.
Well, my own theory is that Endgame was the elites telling us that we're moving into the end game, and then it was all foreshadowing, and it all goes back to Bill Gates, and that's what I'm going to stick to it. And
I mean, Disney Plus
formulate your own opinion.
Disney Plus came out right before all the quarantine, so
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Knew.
It was all part of Disney Plus. It's all a big conspiracy.
So I think it could be a good thing.
Good thing.
I'm just trying to completely ignore everything.
Do your research.
It could be a good thing that these movies and these studios are pushing their products back. Marvel has had a really, really, really good run when it comes to their movies. They've had some that I wouldn't even call duds, but they were close to duds. Maybe like Iron Man 2 or 3 weren't huge hits like Avengers or the first Iron Man. Or Winter Soldier, like those movies were amazing, and then they had a couple movies that were good but not as amazing. But there have been some studios, not to name names, DC, who have had some trouble over the last few years. They have, though. The box office doesn't lie, right? They've had some financial trouble with movies that they've released over the last 10 years or so, and haven't been able to compete with Marvel. And I'm wondering are they just going to push back the work, or while the work is delayed, if the writers and the producers and the directors might take this time to perfect the things that they work on. Because on a movie set, the script that you start with isn't always necessarily the script that you finish with. You might walk on the set one day and the scene that you're going to film has a whole new place of set of dialogue or tone or something else. They'll edit things during production, and now production has been extended by this much. So will they take that to draft even better pieces? Can they make adjustments that they would usually make on the fly, that they have more time to think through? I'm wondering if we might get better products out of some of these movie studios like DC. Are they going to use this time wisely? I hope. What are your thoughts on that, Joel, Brian?
I don't think they will. I think with the unions and the disease and the 6 feet apart, so they're probably not filming anything. They may be doing stuff in post-production, but to pay.
Well, I'm talking about like brainstorming and changing, like on the writer side of things, like perhaps the movies that aren't in production yet. They can.
Okay, true. Yeah, I mean that like could be the case if they're still in pre-production. They may work on the script more, but truth be told, the reason why most of the scripts change on the day of is because of a production issue or because of production change anyway. So for the most part, they're probably are. I mean, they may spend more time on it, but I think right now, like Hollywood is at a standstill. I mean, all the stars are at home. They're trying to stay relevant by posting up videos on their Instagram, whatever it is. It is not doing great for them. And they're not out filming anything. And from a screenwriting perspective, the writer tends to be the first one paid and has the least amount of say in anything. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you know, as I've been trying to break into the industry, it's just one of the realities that they buy your script and then they send you down the road, unless if you're like a Vince Gillian or someone that's big. Otherwise, they don't want anything to do with you. So,
sorry, Brian, I tried to help DC, but I tried.
I think
it's not your fault.
I think I'm gonna disagree just slightly with Joel. Yes, there are some movies that are prominently locked in. For example, Black Widow was prominently locked in. But there are some other movies. Some of these movies are getting pushed back 6 months to a year, and so I think there is opportunity for them to go back and one quick example, finalize CG CGI. Sorry, there's some even Marvel movies that I like that a little extra time to bake would have made it even better. So my hope is that pushing a movie back isn't a bad thing. I think it can give them some time to finish some of these movies, add a little special effects, do some extra shots if they need to. And I think it also gives us a little breathing room. Marvel was coming out with so many movies in a year that I think it's actually a good thing just to pause and kind of reflect. What do some of you other guys think about that?
With all the technology and stuff that we have now, if they really wanted to, they could find some way to communicate to each other, or, you know, Zoom each other, have the different CGI updates like Derek said. So if they really wanted to like try and change it, I think they would. So it's really all up to them.
It depends on the business. I mean, are the CGI visual effects people even getting work right now at all?
Right.
Are they even getting anything? Even getting paid? You know, that's the thing. Is like it's not just about movies being pushed back. It's like entire businesses are just like at a standstill. Now, usually what happens is like there's the top people in those businesses will always be getting work because they're the best of the best. You know, so you know if you're the best of the best and you have a good skill, you can get through this thing. But if you're on the lower end, I mean, it sucks. But you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and crap rolls downhill. So I hate to say it, but that's where you're at. I mean,
I think it does depend on the business, because for like the video game industries, even people working from home, stuff is still being done on games and stuff like that. So CGI, I think, is one of the businesses that stuff could be done. And again, with movies being pushed back so far, 6 months to a year, hopefully we're out of this by then. And so then they can do reshoots and things like that if they need to. But I think the positive is, and the point was, just because something's getting pushed back doesn't mean that it's bad. It can be actually a positive thing. And I think that kind of gets to our faith point there. What is that?
So with my hope that the studios might be taking this time to improve their products before necessarily filming it and releasing them, thinking about how taking that time can be a good thing. Like you were saying, Derek, that we can, if we just have patience, that maybe the products that we're going to get are going to be better than they otherwise would have been. James 1:2-4 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete and needing nothing." And so this is a true trial by fire for a lot of businesses and organizations inside and outside the entertainment industry. And how they adapt and grow is going to strongly inform whether or not they're going to come out on the other side of this at all, let alone with a better product, but if they're even going to financially survive in the meantime. And so now more than ever, I know even at the organization that I work at, one of the things that we're constantly praying for is for creative solutions and innovative ideas, because things are changing almost daily, especially earlier on with the pandemic spread. It was almost like the rules and things that our governor were putting out were changing from day to day. And so how we did business on Monday was different than how we were legally allowed to do it on Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday, before eventually, you have to work from home. And so the same thing with the entertainment industry. They have an opportunity to adapt and grow. And I think this is going to be like, I'm reminded of one of the early presidents of IBM who said, and you can look this up, and it's a real quote. He said that he thought that there was a consumer market in the United States for personal computers of less than 10, because he thought that it was a fad, that the average consumer wouldn't want it, that it was complicated, XYZ. He didn't have the foresight to look at where that industry was going to go and how it could improve and get better and be more consumer friendly. And he was the president of IBM, one of the biggest electronics manufacturers in the world, right? And he didn't have that foresight. And thankfully, people ahead of him eventually did, and IBM has seen moderate success still today. But DC and Marvel, MGM Studios, like all of these different Paramount, 21st Century Fox, they have to be willing to innovate. They have to be willing to be creative, because this is an opportunity for them to grow and to develop. And if they don't, what's going to happen? So thinking through our faith, there are times in our life where we are tested. There are trials that we go through. There are difficult circumstances that we could give up, but we shouldn't. And if we don't, then we're going to see something really amazing on the other side. I could spend half an hour talking about some of the things that I've been through in my life when I felt like giving up and when I really, really, really wanted to give up, but I didn't. And I saw in the end that God was faithful. And the truth is, God is always faithful. Just because it doesn't feel like it in the moment doesn't mean that it's not true. But you have to get through those moments, and you can see those times that God is faithful and the things that he does and the pruning that happens and the growth that happens. And I'm going to stop talking, because otherwise I'm just going to keep going for like ever about this, because I care a lot about it. But Derek, what about you? How do you feel this time could be used in a way innovatively, creatively to glorify God?
Yeah, I think the point is, with everything getting pushed back, could there be any positives in that? And I want to take a moment to be just very sensitive. With everything going on the virus, there are people who are losing loved ones. There are people who are concerned for their health. So we want to acknowledge that. For the majority of us, though, we just feel locked inside. And I think a lot of people want that to be over. And my pastor, I'm going to paraphrase, kind of challenges like, what is God teaching you during this time? Is there anything positive that's coming out of this time? And it made me realize that instead of just wanting to be out of quarantine, hey, God, what do you want to show me while I'm in quarantine? How can I actually use this to build my character? And so God's been really like teaching me a lot of stuff. Like, to be honest, like part of my personality is that I just like to be busy. And when I'm busy, I'm distracted from the major stuff. I'm distracted from like what God's really trying to work on my heart with, what God's really trying to do with me. And so part of this quarantine has been good for me to like just stop and say, hey, instead of me running all over the place to do X, Y, and Z, let me actually take some time to uncover things that God's been trying to teach me, and let me use this in a positive experience while we're in the season to actually reveal some good stuff. And so I would encourage others for that. Gabe, what do you think? What has God been teach you during this time?
Well, I was thinking about the same thing that you were saying in that aspect, and it's everything works out for good for those who love God and according to his purpose. This is not just something that it's told and it's like, okay, well, even if I'm feeling bad, it's working out for good. Yeah, of course. But do I want to live that way? Do I want to live always looking at the small picture in a sense, or do I want to look at the big picture? Whenever it says your faith will be tested, and just seek it. Count us all joy when your faith is tested. Count us all joy when your patience is tested. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. It doesn't matter what's going on in you. Everything works out for good for those who love God and according to his purpose. If that's the case, even if there's a deadly pandemic out there, it shouldn't matter because everything works for good. So even in this situation, what you were saying, like even being here locked inside or whatever it is, it still works out for good. There's still something good coming out of it. Do I want to look? Do I want to see it? If I do, then let me ask God, hey, what good is coming out of this? What do you want to teach me with this? If you don't want to see it, then just don't do it and keep living in defeat would be the word. That's what I was thinking.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that, Gabriel. And it reminds me of one of the things that we pray about so I work, for those of you who are watching and aren't aware, I do and have worked in HR for quite some time. And when we're dealing with really difficult situations between a pair of coworkers, one of the things that we're always praying for and believing God for is that the solutions that we come up with will be two things. They'll be for the good of man, and they'll be for the glory of God. Because we believe that God is glorified in positive outcomes. And that at the end of the day, it's not just about us being good, but it's about it glorifying God, because that is how we share God with other people when he is glorified and elevated. It's not about me having a really creative idea. It's God working through me to do something, and then the glory and the recognition going back to God and not myself, and not our team or anything like that. So that's always at the forefront of our mind, is that it's for the good of man and the glory of God. And I think that can be our prayer during this time, one of our many prayers at least, that the things that happen now in society, in our churches, in our places of business, in our countries around the world, that the decisions we make and that the things that we do are for the good of man and the glory of God, because we want to make his name known above all else. That is the most important thing. We're a group of people here on this podcast who love the entertainment industry, who love video games and movies and board games, but ultimately we love God most. And we want the things that we do to glorify him. And we want to have fun, but ultimately we want to glorify God. And so that's my encouragement to you. Thank you for watching this week. I would encourage you to ask and seek the Lord for what you can do to love your neighbor, to love yourself, and to glorify God, because people need to know that he loves them. They need to know who he is. And maybe you need to know that he loves you. And I promise you, he does. He loves you so much, more than you could possibly know. And if you ever want to find out more about that, John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave his only son for you, because he loves you, because you matter, because you have something on this earth that you are supposed to do that only you can do. So thank you for watching today. We love you and we care about you, and we're so glad that you shared this time with us. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
All right, recording. Cool.
Yeah. See ya.
Sorry, I didn't mean